The phone rang, shattering the calm of Nana's afternoon. Her fingers trembled as she picked up, hearing the words that would change her life forever. "Madam, we can't find your son." The principal's voice was tight with unease. Nana's heart pounded so violently that she barely heard the rest. Kweku, her 10-year-old boy, had vanished from school. She didn't wait for an explanation. Grabbing her car keys, she sped towards the school, her mind racing with terrifying possibilities. Had someone taken him? Was he hurt? Every second felt like a cruel eternity. The schoolyard was too quiet when she arrived, an eerie contrast to her racing heartbeat. Teachers avoided her gaze, and the security guards stood stiffly at their posts, their faces unreadable. The principal ushered her into his office, his hands clasped together as if in silent prayer. "We don't know what happened," he admitted, his forehead slick with sweat. One moment, Kweku was in class. The next, he was gone. His words made no sense. Children don't just disappear. Nana's stomach twisted as she demanded answers. Fear clawed at her insides as a strange tension hung over the room. Her mind reeled back to that morning, to Kweku's smile as he adjusted his crisp new uniform. "You'll do great," she had assured him, hugging him tightly. Moving to a new city had been hard on both of them, but she believed this school was a fresh start. Kweku had been nervous, but hopeful. She had watched him walk into the gates, his small frame swallowed by the sea of students. He had looked back once, waving at her, and then he was gone. That was the last time she had seen him. The memory now felt like a cruel trick played by fate. Now, in the suffocating office, she forced herself to stay calm. "Show me the security footage," she demanded. The principal hesitated before leading her to a small room filled with screens. One by one, they played back the last moments of her son. There he was, walking alone down a corridor, towards a restricted area. Nana leaned in, her breath catching. No one was with him. No one forced him. He simply walked away. Then, as he reached a dead end, the screen glitched. When it cleared, Kweku was gone. Her hands flew to her mouth, a silent scream pressing against her throat. "This isn't possible," she whispered. The principal shifted uneasily, refusing to meet her eyes. We don't know what happened," he stammered. Nana didn't believe him. Something was wrong with this school, and they were hiding it. Before she could press further, a woman burst into the room, her sobs filling the air. Nana turned, shocked to see another mother, her face streaked with tears. "It happened to my daughter too," the woman choked out. "She disappeared from the same place. Weeks ago." The weight of her words hit Nana like a slap. Her fear turned to ice. A sickening realization washed over her. This wasn't just about Kweku. There was a pattern, a terrifying, unspoken truth, lurking beneath the school's pristine reputation. Her son wasn't the first. The school had buried the truth, hoping no one would notice. Rage and terror fought for dominance inside her. How many other parents had been kept in the dark? How many other children were missing? The principal's silence now felt deafening, his refusal to call the police an even greater betrayal. This school had secrets, and Nana was determined to uncover them, no matter what it took. Steeling herself, she turned to the principal. "Where is my son?" she demanded, her voice sharp with desperation. He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the security guard beside him. The air thickened with unspoken tension. "We are doing everything we can," he said weakly, but Nana saw through his lie. Before she could lash out, a voice interrupted them. "I can help." The janitor, a frail-looking man with tired eyes, stood at the door. Nana's pulse quickened. There was something in his gaze, a warning or perhaps guilt. "You need to know the truth," he muttered. The room fell silent. Nana stared at the janitor, her heart hammering. His words carried a weight that made her skin crawl. "Follow me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Nana hesitated for a brief moment before stepping forward. The principal's face darkened. "You're making a mistake," he snapped, but Nana ignored him. The janitor led her through a back corridor, the dim lighting casting long shadows on the walls. Every step felt like walking deeper into a nightmare. Something told her that she was about to learn a truth far worse than she had imagined. They stopped in front of a locked door. The janitor pulled out a key with shaky hands. "This school, it isn't what it seems," he murmured. Nana's breath hitched. Every instinct screamed at her to prepare for the worst. As the door creaked open, darkness swallowed the light from the hallway. The air smelled of damp stone and something else, something rotten. Nana clenched her fists, her body rigid with fear. "What is this place?" she whispered. The janitor didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside, letting her see for herself. And what she saw made her blood run cold. 2 months earlier, Nana had been searching desperately for the perfect school. She had just moved to a new city for work, leaving behind familiar faces and routines. Kweku, her 10-year-old son, was bright but painfully shy, struggling with the transition. She needed a place where he could feel safe, make friends, and excel. The school she found seemed like a dream: pristine buildings, disciplined students, and top academic rankings. The principal had assured her that Kweku would thrive here, that he would be safe. How wrong she had been to believe those empty promises. On their first visit, the school felt almost too perfect, like a scene from a picture book. The teachers smiled warmly, but something in their eyes made Nana uneasy. The students walked in neat lines, speaking only when spoken to. They kept their heads down, their expressions carefully blank, as if trained to suppress emotions. The silence in the hallways felt unnatural, heavy with an invisible weight. A strange chill ran down Nana's spine, but she brushed it off as nerves. The facilities were outstanding, the school's reputation impeccable. Surely, she was just overthinking. Kweku, however, had sensed something she had not. "I don't like it here," he had whispered as they walked back to the car. Nana had crouched beside him, brushing his curls away from his anxious eyes. "Change is hard, my love," she had assured him gently. "Give it time, and you'll see how wonderful it is." Kweku had nodded, but uncertainty lingered in his small face. Nana had chosen logic over instinct, reasoning that discomfort was normal in a new environment. But in her eagerness to do the right thing, she had ignored the warning signs. The first few days had seemed promising. Kweku came home with neat assignments and a new backpack. "It's okay," he had said when she asked about his day, but something felt off. He never spoke about friends, never laughed about classroom antics. His usual spark was dimming, his joy fading like a candle in the wind. At first, Nana blamed the adjustment period, convincing herself it would pass. But then, the nightmares began. Kweku would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, his small body trembling. "They watch me," he whispered. At first, Nana thought it was just an overactive imagination, the way children fear monsters under the bed. But as the nights went on, his nightmares grew worse. He would cry out in his sleep, speaking of shadows lurking in the corridors. "They stand outside the classroom," he muttered one night, his voice distant. "They whisper my name, but when I look they're gone." Nana's stomach twisted, a deep unease settling in her chest. Something wasn't right, but she didn't know how to help him. And worse, she didn't know who they were. Determined to ease his fears, Nana visited the school unannounced one afternoon. She wanted to observe the classrooms, to see how Kweku was treated. As she walked through the halls, she noticed the same eerie quiet from before. The students moved mechanically, their eyes flickering to her before quickly looking away. A teacher approached her with a tight smile, intercepting her before she could get closer. "Parents aren't allowed during school hours," she said politely, but her tone left no room for argument. Something was being hidden, but Nana didn't know what. That night, Kweku refused to talk about school, his appetite nearly non-existent. Nana pressed gently, but he just shook his head. "You won't believe me," he mumbled. Fear flickered in his eyes. deep and unshakable. Nana hugged him tightly, promising she would always believe him, but he remained silent. If only she had pushed harder, asked more questions, demanded answers. She had ignored the signs, hoping things would get better on their own. But now, sitting in the principal's office with her son missing, she realized her worst mistake. She had trusted the wrong people. The air in the principal's office felt suffocating as Nana's mind raced. The security footage had shown Kweku vanishing into thin air, leaving behind only questions. The principal's refusal to call the police made her blood boil with suspicion. What kind of school hides a missing child? Nana's hands trembled as she clenched the edge of the desk, her heart pounding. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, her voice sharp with desperation. But before the principal could respond, a voice interrupted them. "You won't get the truth from him," the janitor muttered from the doorway. Nana spun around, her eyes locking onto the frail man with haunted eyes. The janitor hesitated, glancing nervously at the principal before stepping forward. "This isn't the first time," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Nana's stomach twisted as the weight of his words sank in. "What do you mean?" she asked, dread curling around her like a vice. The janitor exhaled shakily, lowering his voice even further. "Other children have disappeared," he admitted. "They cover it up. They always do." Nana felt her knees go weak, horror sinking into her bones. Rage and panic warred within her as she turned back to the principal. "Is this true?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fury. The man's face remained unreadable, his silence louder than any confession. Nana's heart pounded as she realized the truth. This school was hiding something dark. She had sent Kweku here thinking he would be safe, never imagining she was handing him over to something sinister. The janitor's gaze darted toward the hallway, urgency flickering in his eyes. "If you want to find him," he murmured, "you need to follow me. Now." Without hesitation, Nana rushed after him, her pulse thundering in her ears. The janitor led her through dimly lit corridors, his footsteps eerily silent. The deeper they went, the more the school felt like a maze, twisting and endless. Finally, he stopped in front of the library, his hand shaking as he pointed. "The answers are in there," he whispered. Nana frowned, confused. A library? But as she reached for the door, something about it felt wrong. The wood was ice-cold beneath her fingertips, sending a shiver through her spine. Something was waiting inside. She pushed the door open, stepping into a room shrouded in unnatural silence. Rows of books stretched endlessly, the scent of dust and old paper thick in the air. Nana's breath came fast as she scanned the room, searching for anything out of place. Then she saw it, a single book tilted slightly on the shelf. It was an insignificant detail, yet her gut screamed at her to pay attention. She reached for it, her fingers trembling. The moment she pulled it, a faint click echoed through the room. The entire bookshelf shifted. Nana stumbled back as the shelf creaked open, revealing a hidden passageway. Darkness loomed beyond, the air thick with an unsettling stillness. The janitor's face had turned pale, his eyes darting nervously around. "I shouldn't be here," he muttered, backing away. "If they catch me, I'm done for." Nana's pulse spiked. "Who are they?" she demanded, but the janitor only shook his head. "Be careful," he whispered before disappearing down the hallway. Nana swallowed hard, her body trembling as she stared into the gaping void before her. Kweku could be down there. Summoning every ounce of courage, she stepped inside, the darkness swallowing her whole. The air was damp, the scent of mold and something rotten clinging to the walls. The narrow staircase spiraled downward, each step creaking beneath her weight. Her fingers traced the cold stone walls as she descended, her heartbeat deafening. She had no idea what she was walking into, but there was no turning back. At the bottom of the stairs, she'd reached a heavy wooden door. Her breath hitched as she pressed her ear against it. From the other side, something shifted. Nana's skin prickled as she gripped the handle. bracing herself for the worst. The door groaned open, revealing a dimly lit chamber lined with old desks and chairs. At first glance, it looked like a forgotten classroom, but something was wrong. Shackles hung from the walls, the metal rusted but unmistakable. The sight made her stomach churn. A whisper echoed through the room, sending a chill down her spine. "Help!" The voice was weak, barely a breath, but Nana recognized it instantly. Kweku. Her chest tightened as she rushed forward, desperation clawing at her soul. She turned a corner, and there he was, curled up in the corner, his face streaked with tears. "Kweku," she gasped, running to him, pulling him into her arms. His small body trembled violently, his fingers gripping her tightly. "Mama, they were coming for me," he sobbed, burying his face in her shoulder. Nana's relief was short-lived as a shadow moved behind her. The door she had entered slammed shut, sealing them inside. A slow, deliberate set of footsteps echoed through the room. Nana's blood turned to ice as she turned to face the unseen horror. Nana's breath hitched as she stepped closer to the hidden passage, her pulse hammering in her ears. The principal lunged forward, grabbing her arm in a final attempt to stop her. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low and urgent. But Nana had had enough of his secrecy, enough of his evasions. She shoved his hand away, fury blazing in her eyes. "My son is down there," she spat, her voice trembling. The janitor shifted nervously beside her, his flashlight flickering as he whispered, "No one who goes down there ever speaks about what they see." Her fingers curled into fists, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Then I'll be the first," she muttered, stepping into the passage. A thick, musty scent filled the air as she descended the staircase, the stone steps uneven beneath her feet. Dust swirled in the dim light, coating the walls, which were covered in strange markings. Some looked like scribbles, others like symbols, carved deeply into the stone. Her stomach churned. Why would a school have something like this hidden beneath it? The deeper she went, the more suffocating the air became, as if the walls themselves were closing in. At the bottom, a massive iron door loomed before her, rusted and foreboding. The janitor hesitated, his hands visibly shaking as he pulled a small key from his pocket. "I shouldn't be doing this," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "If they find out..." He trailed off, swallowing hard before pressing the key into Nana's palm. She clenched it tightly, her heart beat wild as she turned toward the door. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get out of this nightmare. But Kweku was beyond that door. She had no choice. With a deep breath, she slid the key into the lock and turned it. The heavy door groaned open, revealing a dimly lit corridor stretching into darkness. The smell of mold, damp stone, and old paper filled her nostrils, making her gag. Rows of small rooms lined the corridor, each one with thick metal doors. Some were slightly ajar, revealing nothing but bare walls and cold floors. Nana's hands trembled as she stepped inside, her voice breaking as she called, "Kweku." Her voice echoed down the corridor, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Then, she heard it, a whisper. Her body went rigid. It was faint, almost like a breath carried through the air. She spun toward the sound, following it past several empty rooms. The whisper came again, leading her to a door marked in bold red letters, "Ko Wei Tijuan Room." Her fingers curled around the handle, slick with sweat. This was it. With a deep breath, she shoved the door open. The dim light barely illuminated the space, but what she saw made her stomach lurch. Piles of confiscated belongings were stacked against the walls. Books, toys, shoes. Tiny reminders of children who had once been here. Her heart pounded violently as she scanned the room, her eyes darting over the strange collection. Who did these things belong to? Why were they here? Then, her gaze landed on a wooden desk covered in papers. Swallowing hard, she stepped forward and picked up a worn notebook. As she flipped it open, her blood ran cold. Names. Dozens of them, scrawled in neat handwriting. Each one was crossed out in thick black ink. Her hands shook as she turned the page, bile rising in her throat. Then, at the very bottom, she saw it. One name remained uncrossed: Kweku. A choked sob escaped her lips as the truth sank in. This wasn't just a punishment room. This was something much worse. A place where children were erased, their existence wiped away with a single stroke of a pen. Her vision blurred with tears as she clutched the notebook to her chest. Had Kweku been locked in here? Had he been taken somewhere worse? She whirled around, desperate for any clue, any sign of him. And then she saw it, a small, tattered shoe peeking out from beneath the desk. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. It was Kweku's, the blue sneaker she had bought him just weeks ago. Her entire body shook as fresh panic seized her. He had been here. But where was he now? A sudden noise made her freeze. A faint scuffle, the sound of movement just outside the room. Nana's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't alone. Someone was here, lurking in the darkness, watching her. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her feet felt cemented to the ground. The janitor let out a sharp gasp. "We have to go," he whispered, his face drained of color. "They know we're here." Nana's pulse rode in her ears as she turned toward the door. The shadows in the hallway seemed to shift, stretching unnaturally in the flickering light. A slow, deliberate set of footsteps echoed through the corridor. Someone was coming. She clutched Kweku's shoe, her mind racing. She had to get out of here. But she also had to find him. The janitor grabbed her arm, his grip tight with urgency. "Now," he hissed, pulling her toward the exit. But as they stepped into the hallway, a cold voice rang out, chilling Nana to her core. "You shouldn't have come here." And with that, this part of Adiz's legendary journey comes to a breathtaking close. But this is not the end, far from it. The next will take you even deeper into a world of adventure, mystery, and shocking twists you never saw coming. What new challenges await? What secrets remain untold? You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned for the next thrilling stories. It's bigger, bolder, and more suspenseful than ever. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the legend alive. See you in the next adventure. Stay tuned.